Hello and welcome to the Evolving HubSpot Podcast by Huble Digital, a podcast where we explore the topics that matter the most in the world of HubSpot. I'm Matthew Creswick and this is episode number 3, where I'm joined by Laura Susnea, Senior CX Consultant at Huble. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Matt. Hello, everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for joining us today. Laura, I guess as a CX consultant at Huble, maybe you could start the podcast by telling us a little bit about your background and what your role is at Huble.
Yes, definitely. So I'm a senior CX consultant, and CX stands for customer experience, but it's just a very fancy way of saying that I work in marketing. I started working in marketing about 5 years ago and started using HubSpot pretty much from the beginning. So I admit my perspective on marketing strategies and tactics is sort of shaped by the HubSpot philosophy. Since then, I've updated my skills to specialize in marketing optimization, analytics, UX experience, and marketing process design. So at Huble, I basically have different projects, different complexities, and I work across all these fields and more.
Amazing. And whereabouts are you based?
I am based in Edinburgh, although I don't have a Scottish accent. That's because I am Romanian. So if you suddenly hear a Dracula accent, that's why.
You're part of our small but growing team in Scotland at the moment.
Definitely. You should hear me during Halloween, though, in between Scottish accents and Romanian accents. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe that's one we'll have to keep an eye on towards the end of the year for another podcast or another video. But so Laura, on today's podcast of obviously Evolving HubSpot, we are going to chat around the relatively new HubSpot Journey Analytics tool. I say relatively new because it was released towards the end of 2022. We're obviously in 1st of September. 2023, so we're a few months on from the initial release, but kind of given it's been out for a few months, I guess we'd like to deep dive into what the tool is, what it's about, how companies use it, your experience of using the tool. For those people listening who haven't heard of the HubSpot Journey Analytics tool, maybe you could start giving us kind of like a brief overview. What is it? Where's it come from? How can companies use it?
Yes, definitely, Matt. So you're absolutely right. This is a new addition to the HubSpot reporting portfolio. And HubSpot essentially announced it last year during Inbound. So almost happy 1-year anniversary to them. But they became launched and public and beta in October. So we're almost there in terms of how long we've had them to use them. And I can say that everyone was extremely excited to finally see them and use them because they were HubSpot's answer to some very challenging pain points that different marketeers were facing when creating reports in HubSpot. And I think the first one, the most important one, is that these reports allow us to map the customer journey. And I know I am reiterating the name, but essentially what that means is that these reports allow us to map the different paths that different target audience segments have across different campaigns. And we can be super precise with what kind of touch points we select there. And that's the second part, right? So the touch points, they're not restricted just to marketing. It bridges that gap between marketing and sales because we have sales touch points like sales emails, interactions, or sequences, and not just marketing email interactions or page views. And it allows us, to see the combination of these two aspects. And to closely measure the audience's progress from awareness to decision-making to purchase, right? For them, for our audience, it's one flow. For us, it's different departments within a business. And the last one, which is quite important, is that within these touch points, we have CRM touch points. And I know I'm saying touch points a lot, but by the end of this podcast, if you remember anything, is the fact that customer journey analytics, it's all about touch points. But what does that stand is CRM touchpoints are when a contact is created or when a deal is created or what kind of life cycle stages they have, right? And this is very important because it allows us to reconcile the customer journey that our audience has with the way we've designed our internal lead management process, because the lead management process is a business process. So we're aligning what happens organically outside of our business with what happens internally in our business. The less friction, the smoother the customer journey process, the higher the chances to close that deal, right? So I think
Awesome.
all three are super important.
Yeah, fantastic. What a fantastic overview you've given there. I think one of the HubSpot product owners would be proud of that. I think they might clip this and use it themselves. But so I guess from to start off from a kind of user experience side of things, obviously HubSpot's very well known for being incredibly user friendly, easy to use, easy to learn. Maybe compared to kind of some of its competitors, but as it's gone slightly more up market, become a little bit more complex, I guess the question is whether or not it's still very easy to use and very easy to build reports. How is using the tool been as you've been starting to create reports over the last few months using the tool?
Well, I would say it's quite easy, but I would put a disclaimer in there because right now it's getting an overhaul. So it depends on the portal you have and the type of subscription you have. You would be able to see that right now the customer journey reports are not solely related to the contact object. So you can also design a customer journey in terms of your deals and how they flow between different pipelines. These are one or the other, so you cannot combine them as a source, but depends on if your portal was updated or not. You see different functions and options in your report's user interface. But as soon as you open the report, you have three panels, three columns, and this is very much the way HubSpot has structured all of their tools across the different hubs. And the left side panel is called steps. This is very easy to see what kind of touch points you have in there and select them. Again, it depends if you have marketing enterprise or sales enterprise, they would change in between. And then you have your middle panel, which is called journey. And that's where essentially you create your customer journey. And it's very, I don't know how to express my enthusiasm, but I absolutely love it because you have a drag and drop functionality, which is relevant in HubSpot. You drag your steps and you have a maximum number of 7 steps. Within these steps, you can divide them into branches. So you can have a maximum of 10 branches across the 7 steps. But the way you design this journey is linear. So it's very easier for the user to keep track of what is the chronological order between steps. But depending on what type of report chart format you select, you can have a more organic view of what's happening. So if those steps are being skipped and they're optional, or more structured view of that journey in terms of chronological steps, one after the other, all of them being mandatory. And that's what you see in the last panel. So we had this was the middle panel. The last panel is where you get your report preview. And run the report, you see what kind of journey has happened for your users.
Amazing. And so just for clarity, this tool is only for Sales Hub Enterprise and Marketing Hub Enterprise customers at the moment.
So if we want to design the customer journey for our contacts, you have to have Marketing Enterprise. If we want to design a customer journey for our deals, then it's Sales Enterprise. If you have both, then you can use both. But if you have one or the other, then you can use just one source.
Okay, amazing. Now, I guess you've given some great examples of the touch points, as you referenced, that you can obviously build into the reports. What kind of use cases would you reference? If you were a company that had Marketing Hub Enterprise or Sales Hub Enterprise and hadn't used this tool as of yet, what would be some kind of go-to use cases that you could provide that they could get started with?
Well, I would say, first of all, this report should not be used in isolation. It should be used with the different tools that you have in HubSpot. So for me personally, when I look at the customer journey reports, I use them in conjunction with two other tools. And I call this the holy triad of campaign deployment, which sounds really fancy, but it's essentially combining three powerful tools. And one is our campaign tool. And if we take the analog version of the campaign tool, is our campaign brief, because we're establishing our goals, our budget, what assets we're using. Obviously in HubSpot is more powerful because it gives us more insights, but the analog version is your campaign brief via your campaign tools. And then you go to your customer journey reports. And this is the beauty of it. It's not just a report. It allows you to sort of map your campaign flow in a 2D format. So instead of using something like Lucidchart, you can do it directly in HubSpot and see touch point by touch point, what is the flow that you want to design for that campaign. And at the end of it, you just run the report and you've closed the loop in terms of analytics. So that's step number 2. And the last one, I would say, it would be the use of attribution reports. And this depends on what type of modules you're using. But if customer journeys are your 2D iteration, your attribution reports are the 3D aspect. So for each touch point, you're giving a value. They can all be equally valuable, or some of them more valuable than the others. But all these three together allow you to sort of gauge your campaign performance better, optimize it, and strategically change the business overview, and allows marketeers to prove the contribution of marketing to the overall business objectives, which traditionally was very difficult to prove to begin with. So that's one use case. I guess the second one is, I've mentioned before, and I'm a big fan of this one. It allows us to measure the alignment between our audience's journey with the lead management process. So we can go from someone viewed a page view to did they become an MQL because of viewing that page view or any other interaction. And we can go between one or the other. But it reconciles, the business perspective versus the customer journey perspective. And it's for the customers, again, it's not a linear journey. Whereas for us, when we design this process in a system, it has to be linear or very, very structured. And that way we can identify the gaps in our process and optimize it to mimic that customer journey better. That leads to better user experience, interactions, and more deals closed.
Yep. Cool. And I guess, Laura, so in my mind, one of the things that you're looking for ultimately is potential issues, right? Potential like drop-offs. So if you're mapping and reporting on a customer journey, and you're seeing that 80% of people reach step 3, but only 20% of people make it from step 3 to step 4. Those are the kind of things you're looking out for in order to really improve that kind of journey across the whole system, right?
Yes, exactly. So with the customer journey report, you can design how you'd like your customer journey to be like, and really measure if what you thought or what you've researched and intended is actually what's happening against the outside environment. But as you're saying, Matt, there's a drop-off, and we don't know why that drop-off exists there, or what was the exact bottleneck that prevented our users to go to the next step. So that's why I'm saying we shouldn't use this report in isolation. It should be used in conjunction with other tools in HubSpot or outside HubSpot as well. And I think just to develop that, I would definitely recommend using this in conjunction with Google Analytics Path Explorer. So I think I am guessing here, I'm not sure, but HubSpot developed this report to begin with because in Google Analytics, we used to have in the universal version a behavioral flow report. And that essentially showed the free flow of the users between the different pages or assets that we were tracking in Google Analytics. And we wanted something similar in HubSpot. So they did develop that. Right now, obviously, we don't have the behavioral flow reports in Google Analytics. We have the GA4 version of that, which is called Path Explorer. And these two reports, so the Google Analytics version and the HubSpot version, are two sides of the same coin. With the HubSpot version, we're measuring exactly what path we want to design and if that is actually what is happening. So how the flow of users or contacts go through this path. With the Path Explorer in Google Analytics, we have a starting point and an ending point. And we can measure everything that happened up to the ending point, which we've selected, or everything that happened after the starting point. So it's free flow. When we overlap these two type of reports, then it gives us that insight in terms of what happened during the drop-off. Was it because they visited another page that we did not include into our steps or into our campaign? And it provides that feedback loop to optimize your path journey further in HubSpot.
Okay, and so but before HubSpot released the Gen Analytics tool, correct me if I'm wrong here, but companies would be ultimately using GA and the Path Explorer tool as kind of their one source of the truth, shall we say, in terms of being able to try and understand the user journey of their website visitors through the website. This tool is the first kind of entry into this world that HubSpot has made, right?
Correct. With Google Analytics, so there are advantages and disadvantages to each tool, right? With Google Analytics, there's certain criteria or certain assets that you can measure against, but not all of them. Whereas in HubSpot, you're measuring against sales interactions points or CRM interaction points. If you want a metaphor, well, not a metaphor, but Google Analytics is essentially what's happening in the external environment, and HubSpot is your internal environment. So you're just aligning those two aspects. What I would say, and I think I forgot to mention this in the beginning, is that with the customer journey reports in HubSpot, now it allows you to integrate anonymous visitors as well. So you can measure the conversion touchpoints between how many contacts viewed your page, either if they're in HubSpot or not, and then the conversion to becoming a contact record in HubSpot. And this was not possible to begin with. Initially, we only had very limited overview in the traffic analytics in terms of anonymous visitors on the website.
Cool, amazing. Okay, and from a this is all extremely interesting from a client perspective. So obviously, you in your role at Huble, Laura, you're working physically with clients day to day on anything to do with customer experience, marketing campaigns, all of the above. Without maybe telling us exactly who the client is and what they do, have you got any kind of examples of recent client work where you've actually implemented this?
Yes, I definitely do. So I think one of my more recent projects is a use case that I've actually mentioned before. So it's that planning of the campaign that I was talking about, not just the reporting aspect in customer journey reports, but the planning it beforehand, before deploying the campaign. So essentially, what was happening was the client had several. Let me start like. So the client had a huge overlap against different types of campaigns and contacts. They were generating leads and they had nurture leads in the system in HubSpot. And they were using a limited set of assets to create campaign flows and paths for them, but not really designing it specifically for the source, so the origin that these contacts were coming from, or measuring the way, these assets were moving the contacts along the funnel to be converted from MQL to SQL. And because of that, they were facing funnel conversion challenges. And it was very difficult for them to tell what exactly was happening in the funnel that prevented these leads or existing contacts to move along the funnel. And what I've done with them is I've created for each type of segment and for each type of campaign, I've created the journey in the reports, in the HubSpot journey analytics reports. And what we've seen in those was an overlap between the assets and the use of assets at the beginning of the journey or the path that would prevent them to interact with the same assets at the end of the path. So they were essentially bottlenecking all their contacts in the beginning, not allowing them to move down the funnel. By using these reports, essentially, I've untangled the customer journeys across different segments, and from there we assessed the design against the asset use and interaction. So, were those assets used at the right time in the campaign flow? Did we need to move them at the top of the funnel or at the bottom of the funnel? And was the historic or legacy interaction from the contacts with the asset relevant enough for us to actually use it in the campaign? And then we strategically moved them and push the contacts down the funnel by either moving these assets, or replacing them with the relevant ones. And that led actually to an increase of MQL to SQL conversions. So it's a really powerful way of seeing what has happened and investigating, becoming like a Sherlock Holmes, right? You're investigating what has happened, redesigning everything, and then deploying it and seeing the results all in one tool.
Yeah. And hearing you kind of give the client example, Laura, kind of highlights the multiple kind of aspects that this is influencing, right? So you've got, by looking at a report like that and finding challenges and issues like you've done, you've got things like fixing reporting issues. You've got things like fixing website issues, potentially things like moving call to actions or buttons or, changing navigations to improve that journey. And you've also even got things like, content performance. How is content performing in terms of pushing people down the funnel? So I think an appreciation for me here is that, a report which, albeit is focused at our customers or contacts moving from one step to the next in a linear fashion, actually kind of the benefits you're getting out and the findings you're getting out at the other side are potentially much bigger than just one small report.
No, definitely. I mean, again, I think the use of report, yes, they're a report, but they're not just a report. They provide so much more insight in terms of what's happening and how to approach strategically the marketing context and apply it to the overall business objective that you have. What I would say is that, the journey is not finished. HubSpot still has a lot to update and change there. And what I would particularly like to see is combining these sources between, contacts and deals or maybe tickets, and having information across these objects integrated together to see what the touch points are and how the customers really go down the funnel through all the possible buyer stages journey, and compare that against the process that we have designed. So just imagine how powerful it would be to have one report where you can jump between a customer touch point like form submission down to they became an MQL, then they had a sales email interaction, and then there was a deal being created and it went down to a specific pipeline, and then it was upsold. So having this in tandem in one report is extremely powerful. There's still some work to be done. I would say, to begin with, I would recommend, having touch points like workflow, enrollment and interaction, or goals interaction. Because let's say, and I'm saying let's say a lot again, in a campaign, if you design your campaign flow and you have a drop off and you have the exit path of that flow, your contacts did not open an email, therefore they drop off, therefore we enroll them into a workflow to be nurtured. maybe I don't want to examine every single interaction in that workflow with every single email. What I want to see is if they've been enrolled in that workflow and if they've achieved the goal that I had in the workflow, because I'm already dividing the paths with if then branches to disenroll anyone that is not interacting in the nurture workflow. So having workflows as a touch point, lists as a touch point, campaigns as a touch point, and even I think the most powerful one would be sources. Where did these contacts come from to begin with? Is the SEO aspect integrated in there? I think we still have quite some work to do, but yeah, HubSpot is on the right track.
Yeah, amazing. And I think part of our geeking out on HubSpot new releases and tools, Laura, is maybe us feeding this back to to the HubSpot product team as to any requests or product updates or improvements. Maybe we can use this podcast as a tool to drive that in the future.
I agree. I mean, I would be very open to give some feedback into the HubSpot product team. But what I would really just conclude with, let's say, if I would say it that way, is the way we use this tool is very much working in tandem with what's happening right now with the marketing world and the new trends. So the buzzword for 2023 is AI. And we're still at the beginning, but we can already see the level of detail that AI really infuses in our ways of providing information to our target audiences. And most importantly, how it allows us to personalize that experience and scale it. So we can see that tailoring a customer journey has started to go beyond just using the first name in an email or using a preset set of options, for smart content. It's almost to the point where it allows us to simulate the feel of a brand and have a mirroring effect in our B2B customer journey interactions. So we can have design a presentation where we have the colors of our customer being used just to upsell or to convince them to sign a contract. But at the same time, we can gauge the personality typologies of our B2C customers and design assets they respond better to. So someone likes a friendlier email versus someone likes a more professional email. What the customer journey reports can do is allow us to better measure the specificity of these touch points. And I think that's why they will work in tandem. They'll grow together.
Yeah. And without going too deep in the AI, in the AI world here, Laura, I think what you've just explained there is kind of like a future tense of a HubSpot world where the AI tools kind of alongside things like customer journey reporting put us probably, dare I say, 2 or 3 years, but maybe even shorter away from a world where each individual person within your CRM system is getting a different journey, different emails, different content, different sales emails, different content shared with them, based off all this information that's coming through. Is that 2 or 3 years away, or is that 2 or 3 months away, given the speed of kind of movement in this world at the moment?
I mean, it's difficult to gauge, but I know there's a lot of work being done by HubSpot and other companies in the background. So who knows, what open source information we'll get, or what new languages will be developed to develop new prompts that make it easier for users to really prompt the system to create these custom-made journeys. And right now, ChatSpot is a tool that's integrated with your HubSpot portal, but exists on a different platform, let's say it like that. What I would like to see is how they would reconcile maybe in the future and have it almost like your help button. They just pop up in your portal and help you, investigate an issue or create or design a campaign or a report based on a specific persona. So maybe we can twist that around instead of splitting them, merging them. Really be interesting.
Yeah, no, cool. So I suppose as I referenced earlier, Laura, we're recording this a few days out from HubSpot's Inbound 23 conference, where I know the team at Huble are kind of eagerly awaiting things like product updates, feature improvements, no doubt an inclusion of more AI tools alongside ChatSpot. So maybe we'll have to do a rerun of this podcast in 4 or 5 weeks' time to kind of reflect on what's been announced there.
I would love to be proven wrong about my assumptions right now and my thoughts. So if HubSpot has something up their sleeve, I would be so excited. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Laura, thank you very much for joining us. That was thoroughly enjoyable and educational. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in to episode 3 of the Evolving HubSpot podcast. Obviously, you can subscribe and to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. But thank you for listening in. And once again, Laura, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone.